On the day of the Christmas party that would wrap up the year. After arriving late, I noticed a female subordinate standing alone outside in the cold winter of December. What's going on? It's a gathering for those with high academic credentials only, they told me, with just a high school diploma, to wait outside. I wonder who told her that. Seeing the female officer shivering and holding back tears, I couldn't just stand by. Education isn't everything. It didn't seem right that her hard work, despite her diligent efforts at work, wasn't being recognized. And then, I quietly reached for my phone in my pocket. My name is John. I work for FBI as an executive assistant director, responsible for overseeing the branch. Susan, have you gotten used to the atmosphere in this branch? Yes, I was quite anxious when I transferred from the field office to here at the FBI headquarters, but now I feel secure in my work. This must be such a wonderful place to work that you wouldn't consider working anywhere else, right? I'm not joking, I really think so. I believe it's all thanks to you, John. Me. Yes, everyone here is exceptionally kind, but I believe it's because we have you as our boss. If that's the case, I'm glad, not sure, though. You made my job so much easier and has helped me tremendously. I'm glad to hear that. I know you have a family to take care of, so don't overdo it. Thank you so much. Raising your son all by yourself, I think you're doing something truly commendable. I'm just doing what needs to be done. Well, that might be true, but I remember you said you weren't confident in your physical strength. Thank you for your concern. I don't have kids of my own, but I understand the difficulties of balancing work and household chores. Oh, do you? When I was in high school, my parents passed away in an accident. I'm sorry to hear that. I had a much younger brother that I worked very hard to provide for. You had such a difficult time when you were still a teenager. Of course, I think it would have been impossible alone. Without the support of those around me, who knows where I'd be. People are willing to help out because of who you are, John. You're giving me more credit than I deserve. I'm now the boss, but I don't think it's all on my own. The support from relatives, friends, and various people is what made me who I am today. That's why I want to be kind to my subordinates. Even as an executive assistant director at the FBI, I've never forgotten that. Without those around me, I might have given up back then. You've overcome many hardships to be where you are today, John. It sounds cool when you put it that way. Seeing Susan, who transferred from a local field office, reminds me of the old days. Somewhere in my heart, I might be seeing a reflection of my younger self. One day, the topic of our annual event came up. It was a man named Mike who first suggested it. John, the Christmas season is upon us, isn't it? That's right, I had almost forgotten. I'll look up some nice places. No, I've already made a reservation. Really? You've already booked? That was quick. Since I am a Harvard Law School graduate, and I passed the FBI exam with top honors, he said. Does that have anything to do with booking the Christmas party? If I do say so myself, I'm a very gifted and competitive person who wants to take the leadership in doing many things. Regardless, it's always appreciated that you invite me every year. It seems like the Christmas parties are usually held among colleagues of similar ranks. Exactly. Not everyone gets invited, so I'm always happy to be included. With someone as well respected as John, it's only natural. Anyway, John, please make sure you come. I've booked a special place. Thank you, I'm looking forward to it. Mike was elitist and proud, but a man who could get the job done. I trusted him to handle things. But at that time, I had no idea what was about to unfold. On the day of the Christmas party, I had to contact Mike unexpectedly. I'm sorry, but something urgent came up at work. Is that so? Tough break, John. It won't take too long, so I'll probably be late. Is that okay? Not a problem at all. Please get in touch later. Thanks. I'll wrap up as quickly as I can and head to the venue. I hurriedly began working on the unexpected task. It was more extensive than I anticipated, and by the time I finished, the Christmas party had already started. Man, I need to hurry. I rushed to the venue that Mike had booked. There, I found someone standing alone outside the venue. Is that you, Susan? Hi, John. Good evening. What's going on? It's cold outside. Why don't you go inside? Well, it's just that. Susan seemed hesitant and troubled. Let's go in together anyway. I'm sorry, I can't. What do you mean you can't? Why? Mike and some others told me to wait outside. What? Why? Because I only have a high school diploma. They don't want to drink with someone of a lower education level. What? Did they really mean that? Yes. But I only have a high school diploma too. Maybe, but I guess it's different for you, John. You're the boss. That's not the point. You were invited to the Christmas party, weren't you? Yes, I was invited, so I came. And yet they told you to wait outside. That doesn't make any sense at all. I know, but... Susan looked like she was about to cry. Considering it was the Christmas season, it was extremely cold outside. It was utterly unreasonable to make her wait outside. Susan, let's go to a different place. What? There's no need to wait here for a Christmas party. There are plenty of other nice places we can go to. Let's go. But, I was told to wait. There's no need to wait. You don't have to comply with such unjust demands. But shouldn't you go, John? I have no desire to drink with people who would treat you like this. I'm sorry, this is all because of me. What are you talking about? You've done nothing wrong. There's absolutely no need for you to apologize. Thank you. Let's go. It's too cold to stay outside any longer. You might catch a cold. Yes. I quickly arranged for a place and headed there with Susan. We caught a taxi and hurried in. It's a bar that is dedicated to creative dishes, and everything they serve is top-notch. Really, I'm looking forward to it. Still, I'm appalled by Mike and the others' behavior. Oh, by the way, do you need to let Mike know? I called him earlier and even sent a message, but there was no response. I see. The Christmas party must be in full swing. He probably hasn't noticed. I guess so. Don't worry about it. They have their own thing going, and we'll have our fun. You're right. I'm sorry for being so down. Anyone would be upset after what happened. It's completely understandable. I'm really glad you're here, John. You're welcome. Hey, looks like we've arrived at the place. I paid the taxi fare and got out with Susan. Well, we should greet them. Greet who? You'll see once we're inside. I opened the door to the establishment and entered with Susan. Hey, John, we've been waiting. Michael, sorry to keep you waited. What is Michael here? It's a year-end party for the senior management. I was supposed to drop by later. I had no idea. John, who's the lady with you? This is Susan, who transferred to my branch from the field office. Would it be all right if she joined us? Come on, let's have a nice drink since we're here. Thank you. At a Christmas party filled with senior management, Susan was initially quite nervous. However, her tension gradually eased. Susan, do you also have a high school diploma only? Yes, I do. I'm a bit embarrassed to admit it. What's there to be embarrassed about? Everyone here at this Christmas party is a high school graduate. Really, is that so? Just because someone's part of the senior management doesn't necessarily mean they're highly educated. I see. Maybe I had some prejudices. Many of us here have struggled with family issues. I think there is a lot we can relate to when we hear about the circumstances you just described. That's such a generous thing to say. Thank you. I'm relieved to see you're getting along well. John, have you always been close with the senior management? You know, I've even been invited to their Christmas party. We've known each other for a long time, and we have a good connection. Compared to when she entered, Susan seemed much more relaxed. She must be delighted to find common ground with people she thought of as being out of her league. She was sharing more personal stories than she usually might. Yeah, you seem to have a lot in common with John, don't you? Really? In what ways? Oh, in many ways. What do you mean by that specifically? Well, no need to delve too deeply into that. Let's just enjoy our drinks for now. Oh, okay. Despite the terrible treatment from Mike and his gang, the Christmas party here turned out to be a lot of fun. The wonderful time flew by quickly, and it was time to disband. See you tomorrow, John. Jess, I'll be heading off now. Good night. Since we were headed in the same direction, Susan and I shared a taxi back, just like on the way there. John, thank you for today. I had a great time. I enjoyed it too. The senior management seemed to like you. I was surprised. I always thought people at the top were almost out of reach. That's an exaggeration. You found a lot of common ground, didn't you? Yes, I did. It made me really happy, and it motivated me to work harder. Great. I'm looking forward to seeing what you achieve next, Susan. Please, don't put pressure on me like that. It makes me nervous. After such a conversation, we parted ways. I have work tomorrow, so I better get some sleep soon. The next day, I went to work as usual. Then, someone from the senior management visited our branch. It was some of the members who attended yesterday's Christmas party. Good morning, Susan. How are you doing? Hi, Michael. Good morning. I had a lot of fun yesterday. You seem a bit nervous without the alcohol, don't you? While Susan was greeting the senior management, one person hurried over. It was Mike. Michael, good morning. You look great as always. And you are? I'm Mike, a Harvard Law School graduate and future head of the FBI. Oh, okay. The senior management seemed visibly perplexed by Mike's sudden self-promotion. Despite the circumstances, Mike continued to ingratiate himself. He probably thought that by winning favor here, he could secure a faster path to promotion. By the way, are you acquainted with Susan? Well, yesterday we were at the same Christmas party. I see, but I'd advise against associating with such individuals. What do you mean by that? Michael glared at Mike, but he seemed oblivious to it. Mike pointed at Susan and began. She's a high school graduate and always a handful. Is that so? It slows down work, and it's really troublesome. Working with capable people like you must be entirely different. Do you think that has anything to do with educational background? Of course, it's directly proportional to a person's value. You understand that, don't you, Michael? Are you truly saying that from the bottom of your heart? Absolutely. Anyone who says education doesn't matter is just making excuses for their lack of it. What's your opinion on people with lower educational backgrounds? People with middle or high school education are not even human. They are the absolute bottom, never reaching the level of a Harvard graduate like myself. You're quite confident, but you clearly didn't understand anything. Excuse me. One's excellence doesn't require a formal education. I'm a high school graduate myself. Wait, are you high school graduate? That's what I said. Is there any problem with that? No way. How could that be? What's wrong? You are joking too much. How is it possible for someone as outstanding as you to be a high school graduate? I'm serious, though not joking. Really? Your highest level of education is high school? Yes, according to her theory, I suppose I'm not human. No, I didn't mean that. Well, what's the matter? Isn't that what you said? Well, that was just, you know. Mike's previously smug expression turned pale in an instant. It seems he finally knew he had gone too far. I'm terribly sorry. Someone like you is the exception among exceptions, a truly special individual. So there are exceptions among those with lower education levels. Yes, there are two kinds, you and everyone else. You're flattering me quite a bit, aren't you? Of course, people like Susan here, who are useless, are a completely different breed. It's almost insulting to even compare them. So it's because you can look down on others like that, that you do what you did yesterday. What did I do yesterday? Oh dear, you're not going to pretend you don't remember such a terrible act, are you? What are you talking about? I don't recall meeting you yesterday. Who said anything about me? I'm talking about what you have done to Susan. What? Oh, what was that again? Even though you invited her to the Christmas party, she wasn't allowed inside the venue, right? No, there was a little situation with that. What kind of situation? I'm all ears. I'm expecting an irrefutable argument. Well, I mean, after all, our culture is a predominantly male world, right? I'm listening. So, since the members at yesterday's Christmas party were all men, I thought Susan might find it boring. But you knew who the attending members were from the start, didn't you? Well, yes, but if she was just going to wait outside until the Christmas party was over, wouldn't it have been better to send her home? Oh yes, that's true. I hadn't thought of that. Michael, you always have such a unique perspective. Are you praising me or mocking me? Absolutely, I'm praising you. You thought that would please me. Michael glared at Mike with a look that could scare off like a demon. Overwhelmed by his presence, Mike began to cry like a baby. I'm so sorry. I'm disappointed in your character. It's a reminder that there are things far more important than educational background. Oh my. As we're talking, I remember hearing numerous complaints about you. What? There have been several reports of you harassing people with only a high school diploma. Harassment, that's not it at all. I'm just teaching them the harsh realities of society. Teaching. So, what you did to Susan was also teaching, was it? Well, yes, that's exactly it. It's all done out of love. Mike tried to justify his indefensible logic. Michael looked at him with disdain and spoke calmly. I see. Then, let's conduct a thorough investigation and decide on an appropriate punishment. Punishment? Please wait. I just wanted to improve the quality of the organization. So, you consider improving quality important? Of course, I always put the organization first, beyond my own interests. That's a commendable thought. I agree with it. Thank you. Well then, I'll take my leave now. Yes. The senior management left. Mike seemed relieved that his viewpoint had received some agreement. However, a few days later, a shocking order came from the senior management for Mike. What? Me? Transferred? That's right. You're being sent. Wait a minute. Why do I have to be transferred? Are you dissatisfied? Of course I am. I want to elevate myself with my peers here at the headquarters. The place you're being transferred to is known for being very strict. That's terrible. You mentioned to the senior management that you prioritize the organization first, right? What does that have to do with anything? Michael agreed with you. Yes, but a transfer doesn't make sense at all. No, your transfer was decided because it was deemed necessary for someone who puts the organization first. What? You're a troublemaker who disrupts the harmony of the organization. We don't need that. That's harsh. How could I, a Harvard Law School graduate, be a troublemaker? That's impossible. You are free to think what you want. By the way, your transfer destination is famously strict, so brace yourself. What? Wait a minute. I was raised as a cherished only child. I can't handle a strict workplace. If it's too much, you're free to resign. Oh. The decision to transfer you is final. It won't be reversed. This is all Susan's fault. Don't blame others for your own failings. Shut up. I'll make you regret ever looking down on me. I'll climb higher than you could ever imagine. Is that so? Do your best. Don't mock me. I'll make all you low-educated people regret getting cocky. With those parting words, Mike was transferred. About 6 months later. John, have you heard about Mike? What happened? It seems he quit the FBI. What? After all his talk about making us regret it. He ran away because it was too tough. He had always had a smooth sailing career as a Harvard graduate, so he couldn't handle the sudden setback. Well, he couldn't turn his frustration into motivation. I wonder what he's doing now. I saw him at the park the other day. The park? Doing what? Susan happened to pass by the park in front of the station, where she saw Mike emerging from a makeshift home made of cardboard boxes. It seems their conversation went something like this. Mike, what are you doing here? It's you, Susan. Please, I'm begging you, give me some money. You must have some savings, right? Wait a minute. I can't just give you money like that. And, are you living in the park? I quit my job in frustration and gambled away all my savings on something I've never done before. What are you doing? Not only that, but I ended up borrowing money from some shady lenders and couldn't pay it back. So you ended up here. You know what? You feel sorry for me, right? Don't you really sorry for me? What? You don't want to see a Harvard graduate like me in such a fallen state, right? Well, I don't want to see it, but then you'll help me out, right? Give me $3,000. With that, I can definitely turn my life around. What? I'm a Harvard graduate, you know. With that amount of money, I can do anything, be it investing or gambling. The possibilities are endless. I refuse. What? I don't want to help someone who looked down on me and harassed me. How could you say something so cold? I just explained why. Excuse me. Wait, I am sorry about all of this. I think you're the best talent, even if you only graduated high school. Thanks for that, but it's not making me happy at all. Please, I'm begging you. You're my only hope. My parents have disowned me. I'm at my wit's end. You're being persistent. Goodbye. After that, Susan never encountered Mike again. I see. So he's living quite a miserable life now. After all the time he did to look down on me. And now you are a great asset to the workplace. Well, I wouldn't say so. You focused on using your computer knowledge to streamline your day-to-day work, right? Yes, I've always been interested in computers and studied them since I was a student. Thanks to your efforts, you are now assigned to the cyber division and are making a name for yourself. It's really awesome. Thank you. Actually, I used to be in the cyber division myself. Really? I had no idea. I was interested in computers just like you. With the rise in online crimes, I thought I could use my knowledge to help combat them. I never would have guessed you were in the cyber division. People are not what they seem. Hey now, what's that supposed to mean? Sorry, I just couldn't picture it. I used to hear that a lot when I was in the division. When Michael said you and I were alike at the Christmas party, he must have been referring to this. That's right. We also talked about computers, so he must have thought so. I'm glad I cleared that up. If you have any questions about the cyber division, feel free to ask me anything. If so, as a senior member of the cyber division, would you be willing to teach me some things? You are quick, aren't you? Sure, no problem. How about we go out for a meal this Saturday? I'd love to have a more detailed chat then. Let's do it. I know a great place we can go to. This became the start of Susan and me meeting up more frequently, even outside of work. Initially, we only talked about work, but gradually we began discussing our family lives and hobbies. Before we knew it, we weren't just having meals together, but also going out to various places. Sometimes, we even took Susan's child to amusement parks. About half a year into this relationship, Susan, would you consider dating me? What? The more we met outside of work, the more I found myself drawn to you. Thank you, but what? Are you sure you like me? Susan said this with a lack of confidence. Instead of words, I chose to respond by embracing her. John, I want you. Please, consider dating me with the intention of marriage. Yes, if you're sure you love me, I'd be happy too. And so, we began dating. Susan's child quickly grew fond of me, and I genuinely adored him. A person's academic background is undeniably a testament to their effort and achievement. However, a lower level of education does not equate to a lack of value in a person. Through these events, I was reminded of this simple truth. You're still not married. My beautiful wife is an executive secretary who has global experience. Not even out of high school, you wouldn't even get a chance to meet someone like her. After 30 years, my middle school classmate, now referred to as Mike, ridiculed me upon our reunion. He's probably still mentally stuck in the time when we graduated from middle school. Just then, I heard the soft honk of a car horn and turned my gaze towards the road. Parked there were 10 luxury cars, from which a line of well-built young employees began to emerge. Dressed in dark suits, the sight of these young men was quite impressive. These men with imposing figures built through physical labor, which were evident beneath their suits, all greeted me together. Mike, who had been watching, staggered back in fear before staring at me in astonishment. My name is James Carter. I'm 45 years old this year. I work for a construction company and live a happy life with my beloved wife and adorable daughter. Hearing just this, one might assume I've had a peaceful and gentle life. But in reality, it's been anything but peaceful, filled with poverty and frustration. I was raised in a terribly poor family. Soon after I was born, my father fell seriously ill and was hospitalized. Despite desperate treatments, he passed away just a year later. Left behind were my young mother, barely in her 20s, me at the tender age of 3, and the debt incurred from my father's medical bills. My mother had to raise me single-handedly, working from dawn till dusk every day. As a result, I never had the toys or games that other kids my age took for granted. We barely made ends meet by eating bread given to us by the bakery where my mother worked that could not serve it. When I started elementary school and began receiving school lunch, I was so amazed by the taste. Without those meals, I would have likely remained painfully thin without proper growth. It's hard to imagine in a country as wealthy and advanced as the United States that there are children living like I did. I didn't want to be at home where my mother didn't come home until late at night, and I spend more time outside the house. Even when I tried to play with others, I didn't have the latest games or anything really. Moreover, my worn and ragged clothes made me an outcast among my peers. That limited what I could do in parks and playgrounds, so I naturally holed myself up in the library to read books. Learning about worlds unknown to me was exhilarating, and my curiosity only grew, naturally drawing me to various subjects. Before I knew it, my grades improved significantly, and I began to earn the respect of my classmates. In middle school, I continued to excel academically, leading to roles like class rep and student body president, making for a fulfilling student life. However, this streak of success ended in the spring of my second year of middle school. A parent-teacher conference was held to determine a course of study at the high school, and I was present, but both my mother and my school counselor, Mr. Thompson, looked somber. With my academic ability back then, I could have easily gone on to the most advanced course at the top high school in the state. But even if we don't have to pay tuition, it costs a lot of money to go on to higher education. Mr. Thompson, isn't there any way? It's heartbreaking to think that his potential could be wasted just because we're poor, my mother said. No, it's okay, Mom. I've always wanted to start working as soon as possible, I lied. The truth was, I wanted to attend high school like my classmates, go to college, and gain a broad range of knowledge and experiences to contribute meaningfully to the world. But I also wanted to provide a more comfortable life for my mother, who had done so much for me. Considering this, I lied about my intentions to work immediately after middle school. However, my insistence didn't matter. My mother, nearly in tears, desperately wanted me to continue my education. Seeing my mother's determination for my future, Mr. Thompson presented a brochure. This local company, called the Anderson Group, actively accepts employees who have graduated from middle school. The company has a program that allows them to work while taking correspondence courses, so you could still get your high school diploma depending on your effort, James, he explained. Hearing Mr. Thompson's words, my mother pondered for a while. The construction industry seems physically and mentally demanding. Even with such a program, is it really possible to find time to study? She questioned. Indeed, it would require far more perseverance and effort than the average high school student, but I believe James has what it takes to succeed, Mr. Thompson reassured her. As my mother and Mr. Thompson discussed, I became fully convinced to work for this company after reading the brochure. It seemed like a place where both my desire to work and my mother's wish for me to study could be fulfilled. Above all, I was moved by the passionate corporate philosophy of the company's president, Mr. Anderson, which was detailed in the brochure. The company aimed to pursue happiness for all employees, both in their work and personal lives, while contributing to the advancement of the community and youth. Those words filled me with endless possibilities and enthusiasm, making me eager to join their ranks. Thanks to Mr. Thompson's support, I secured a job at Anderson Group. While all my classmates were heading to high school, I started feeling like an outsider at school. There was one person who seemed quite pleased with my situation. It was Mike, who had been my rival since elementary school. Mike came from a wealthy family and had been attending prestigious tutoring centers since he was young. Despite that, I often outperformed him in grades during our elementary school years, which apparently infuriated his mother. She unilaterally declared me his rival and constantly pushed him not to lose to me. However, my grades remained superior to Mike's throughout middle school, and I never relinquished the top spot in our class. At that time, I was still planning to pursue further education and had chosen the advanced course at one of the most competitive high schools in the state as my aspiration. While my mock test results were comfortably within the passing range, Mike's result was on the fence with a 50% chance of admission. After sneakily peeking at my results, a frustrated Mike bitterly remarked, "You can afford to go to the high school for 4 years, so how can you?" I couldn't muster a response to Mike's words. Yet, despite the bitterness and humiliation, I resolved to keep this incident to myself, not wanting to sadden my mother with it. From that moment, I began to seriously consider employment over further education. As everyone around me looked forward to high school, I resigned myself to the fact that such a future wasn't meant for me. When the placement period arrived, I took a chance and applied to an advanced course at a prestigious high school, securing the top score among applicants. After that, I changed my mind from higher education to finding a job. Thus, upon graduating middle school, I joined Anderson Group. Meanwhile, Mike seemed to have passed the course of his choice. But I was so busy adjusting to the completely new world of the construction industry that I didn't have time to think about anything else. Nowadays, female supervisors exist, but back then, the construction industry was dominated by men, and angry shouts were always heard here and there. In my new surroundings, it was Mr. Charles Anderson, the president of the Anderson Group, who took care of me as I was flustered and trying to adjust. Upon learning about my situation, Mr. Anderson, with tears in his eyes, vigorously patted my back in encouragement. "Young men like you, James, are the reason I run this company. Don't hesitate to ask for anything," he declared. True to his word, Mr. Anderson ensured I received on-the-job training while also making time for my studies. Consequently, I spent my mornings working on-site and my evenings studying at Mr. Anderson's home. Mr. Anderson had a lovely 3-year-old daughter. Her name is Sophia, who quickly grew fond of my frequent visits and would eagerly greet me at the door. "Sophia seems to have taken a real liking to you, James. Even when I'm around, she heads straight to you," Mr. Anderson would say, making me feel somewhat embarrassed. While gaining on-site experience, I also began to handle computer-based tasks such as calculations and designs. Apparently, I was better suited for the latter and gradually began to focus on administrative work. 4 years into my job, I graduated from a high school with a correspondence course. I had been contemplating continuing my work at the company when Mr. Anderson encouraged me to pursue higher education. "There's never a loss in acquiring education when you have the chance. Don't worry about the company. We'd be grateful to have you return with even more knowledge." Thus I went on to study architecture at a prestigious university with the savings I'd made in salary. Sharing my acceptance news with my mother, she teared up with joy, saying, "You've worked so hard, balancing work and studies. You've really done well." Her happiness made me emotional too. At the university, I learned from renowned professors, made friends and acquaintances within the architectural field, and enjoyed fulfilling days. After graduating, I returned to Anderson Group, eventually taking on significant management roles in the company as I crossed into my 30s. My promotion was celebrated by my former senior colleagues at the company. Someone with hands-on site experience leading them significantly improved work efficiency. Thinking from both a managerial and an on-site perspective allowed us to make our operations safer and more efficient. As a result, Anderson Group's performance soared, and in recent years, the company has seen significant growth. My alma mater occasionally invited me to lecture on architecture, enhancing my local reputation and attracting a steady stream of young job applicants, contributing to the company's continued growth. Meanwhile, Mr. Anderson's daughter, Sophia, grew into a beautiful woman. Even I, typically slow to notice such things, noticed that Sophia seemed to have a genuine fondness for me. One day, Mr. Anderson invited me for a drink after work and abruptly asked, "So, James, have you got someone special in your heart?" "No, I'm enjoying my work right now and haven't really had the chance to meet any women." In response to my casual reply, Mr. Anderson looked at me seriously. "What do you think of Sophia? You already know. She really wants to marry you. I can trust you with my sweet daughter." Though I had sensed her affection, having it explicitly stated made me feel both embarrassed and elated. The next day, I dressed in my best suit and visited Mr. Anderson's home. With a bouquet of roses in hand, I declared to Sophia, "Sophia, I promise to make you happy. Please marry me." Nervously, I had intended to ask her out, but I ended up proposing instead. Nevertheless, Sophia blushed with happiness and said, "Yes, I'd be delighted to if you'll have me," and we were married a year later. Sophia took my last name, and we've been living a happy married life. 30 years after graduating from junior high and entering the workforce, I turned 45. It was a fitting milestone for me to become the second president of the company. Now, as my father-in-law, Mr. Anderson, taught me the ropes of being a president, my days became busier and more fulfilling than ever. Before I knew it, Anderson Group had grown into a regional powerhouse with 7,500 employees. Amidst this, the company was invited to play a central role in a major regional development project. With many related companies involved, a networking reception was organized in a hotel's grand hall to foster connections. On the day of the reception, the venue, set up as a buffet-style party, was bursting with the enthusiasm and ambition of those in the construction industry. This time, family attendance was encouraged, so the presence of construction company presidents' spouses and children added to the ambience. Sophia mentioned she would join later, so I waited for her arrival at the entrance, looking out onto the street. That's when a man stopped in front of me. His face seemed familiar, and as he approached and scrutinized me, he broke into a wide smile. "Hey, aren't you James? Long time no see. It's me, Mike." It was Mike, the one who had treated me as a rival back in middle school. "It's been a while. Surprised you recognized me. I'm a sales director now. Beating my peers requires at least remembering names." Mike smirked, crossing his arms and staring at me. "I heard you became a carpenter. Are you involved in this project? You don't look sunburned, though." Got fired from carpentry. He probably assumed I was still working on site due to my initial job. It seemed Mike couldn't grasp that people's jobs and positions change over time. Wanting to feel superior by comparing himself to me, just like in middle school. Mike continued scrutinizing me, but then seemed to find a new angle to attack from. "Attending alone, aren't you? You're still not married. My beautiful wife is an executive secretary who has global experience. Not even out of high school. You wouldn't even get a chance to meet women." Reuniting after 30 years only to be mocked by Mike indicated his mindset hadn't evolved since middle school. While I understood his desire to boast about his wonderful wife and success, it wasn't appropriate for this setting. Mike went on boasting, but I was growing increasingly uncomfortable. Then, I heard a car horn and turned to look at the road. "James, I'm sorry to keep you waited." "Sophia, glad you could make it." In front of a lineup of 10 luxury cars, Sophia's arrival brought a smile to my face. "Thanks for coming today. Are the others in the cars behind your father and his colleagues?" "Yes, Dad wanted to give the younger members of the group a chance to learn too." As Sophia and I chatted amiably, well-built young employees began stepping out of the luxury cars. Dressed in dark suits, their presence was impressive. And their muscular builds, honed by physical labor, were apparent even through their suits as they greeted me. Witnessing this, Mike staggered back in shock, then looked incredulously between Sophia and me. "What? You're married, and to someone from the group?" "Yeah, she's my wonderful wife. Thanks to her, I'm leading a very happy life," I replied honestly, without feeling the need to hide anything. Our young and well-built employees gradually made their way into the hotel hall. At that moment, a woman dressed in a dark navy suit approached us. Mike greeted her with a relieved expression. "You're late." It seemed she was the wife Mike had boasted about, who has global experience. Being a secretary, she appeared in a simple outfit for today's event. "This is my wife, Madison. She is beautiful and works as an executive secretary. She used to live in Paris and Barcelona, so she speaks French and Spanish," Isn't that great?" Mike boasted as if her achievements were his own. After a brief glance at him, I greeted Madison. Though undoubtedly beautiful, her often forlorn expression caught my attention. Noticing me, Madison's demeanor shifted to a more formal one as she quickly greeted me. "Thank you for your support. I appreciate your consideration the other day." "It's no problem at all. It must have been tough for you since then." Overhearing our exchange, Mike looked at me quizzically. "Madison's an executive secretary at a trading company, right? Why are you, just a carpenter, speaking so familiarly with her?" "What are you talking about? This is Mr. Carter, the president of Anderson Group, a leading corporation in our state. He generously forgave our company for a delivery mishap recently," Madison corrected him. Indeed, Madison was the secretary to the director of one of Anderson Group's business partners. Not quite the high-level executive assistant Mike portrayed her. As faced with the truth, Mike stood agape, stunned. After all, Anderson Group was central to the current project. It was almost absurd that Mike, involved in a regional development plan, didn't recognize my name. However, unwilling to accept the reality, Mike shook his head in disbelief before raising his voice again. "Stop lying. I don't know how you deceived my Madison, but it's shameful to boast and lie even though you're poor." I was about to retort when Madison quickly apologized. "I'm sorry for my husband's rudeness. Despite the opportunity you gave us at work recently, we've caused you discomfort today." "It's fine. Work and personal life are separate, after all." Mike's expression darkened as our conversation continued. His pride was likely hurt, seeing his wife, whom he had boasted about, apologizing to me, whom he had looked down upon. "What's this joke? There's no way a middle school graduate like you could be the president of the renowned Anderson Group. James is my husband, and there's no mistake that he's the president of Anderson Group." At that moment, Sophia, who had been listening in, spoke up. She began addressing Mike and Madison with a calm yet dignified smile. "James joined Anderson Group when I was just 3 years old. I've always known I wanted to be with him, and we got married as soon as I turned 18. What a lovely story. To be dedicated to your husband like that from such a young age, it must have been a fateful encounter." Flattered, I couldn't help but feel a bit embarrassed. "We were late today because I was putting our daughter to bed." "How old is your child?" Madison asked, her gaze drifting enviously towards Sophia's belly, which was noticeably rounded with our second child. "She's 3. We took our time to enjoy life as a couple before having her, so she's still quite young." Madison bit her lip in frustration as she listened to Sophia's innocent words. "I've always wanted children too, but with both of us working, and my husband's expensive car hobby, we can afford it. Don't blame it all on me. You spend plenty too. Look at James's wife. She may dress simply, but she's much more beautiful than you with all your finery." Mike retorted, pointing out Madison's branded accessories and bags. Though Madison was adorned in brand name items, her gaze lingered on Sophia's attire. Sophia, preferring elegant fashion, might seem understated at first glance, but she actually collected rare, high-value pieces she genuinely liked, likely making her attire more expensive. The realization that she had given up on children for financial reasons, only to be faced with someone who seemingly had it all, must have been painful for Madison. Moreover, while men can father children at an older age with lesser physical consequences, women face significant physical burdens, adding to Madison's distress. As I pondered their situation, Mike, looking displeased, grabbed my arm. "Look, running into you here must be fate. Let's do business with my company. I upset a major client last month. We're old acquaintances, right?" I was at a loss for words due to Mike's utterly one-sided argument. Even after all these years, he still looked down on me until he knew I was the president, and then he suddenly changed his tune. "We worked hard studying together back in middle school, didn't we? Let's continue to get along." I wonder what Mike remembers from our middle school days. I still haven't forgotten his words. "You think you can just go to high school for 4 years without any money?" I'm not a philanthropist who's kind to just anyone, and to be honest, I'd rather not have Mike in my sight. "I'm sorry, but I have to decline. I don't think we can have a pleasant business relationship." "What? Why not?" Mike must not have expected to be turned down. His eyes widened in surprise, and he confronted me aggressively. "Come on, trade with me. My position at the company is really on the line here. My sales performance is down, and I'm not doing well with new ventures. At this rate, I might get demoted." "I can help you there. Isn't that a reflection of your abilities? Who would willingly do business with someone whose performance is declining and is on the verge of demotion?" Not just Mike was taken aback by my words. Madison, who had been listening in, hastily pleaded, "Please let me also ask you. He could be fired, not just demoted. In fact, he has been messing around with a female subordinate and is being pursued by the company. He really can't afford to make any more mistakes." "Is that what you want, Madison?" When I asked her quietly, Madison could only respond with a surprised "what?" as her eyes widened. "I've talked with you a few times at work, so I feel I have some understanding of your character. In truth, you can't forgive Mike for what he did, can you?" "Well..." Madison muttered a word and then fell silent, looking down. Madison's stern and silent expression is probably a far cry from her usual one. Seeing his wife motionless, Mike panicked and pressed her. "What do you mean? You're my wife. You should always be on my side, right?" Leaving Mike to his ranting, I prompted Sophia to move into the grand hall with me. The reception ended successfully that day, but we never saw Mike or Madison again. That was the last time I saw Mike. What follows is what I heard from acquaintances at our trading partners. Following that reception, the large-scale development project for regional promotion progressed smoothly with various companies. But Mike's company was not among them. The lack of an attractive proposal was the main reason. However, it's rumored that Mike's bad behavior, which had become widely known, was also a factor in their reluctance to engage in business. Considering the effect on the company's future, the executives decided to transfer Mike from sales. He was moved to a less significant department, essentially being put on standby for voluntary resignation. It seems pitiful to hear that much, but in fact, it seems that the situation was one of leniency, that he was not reprimanded. This is because it was discovered that Mike was actually demanding bribes from his subcontractors. When his salary didn't increase as expected due to declining performance, he started selling company client lists to dubious firms in exchange for cash and lavish entertainment. As these facts came to light, and female employees he had harassed began to consider legal action, Mike finally surrendered. Taking responsibility for his actions, he resigned voluntarily. He tried to find work in other companies, but his reputation had already spread throughout the industry, leading to rejections everywhere. Having no choice, he managed to get hired as a temporary worker by a subcontractor, but his pride in having always been on the winning side in his life up to that point did not leave him until the end. It led to his resignation after failing to tolerate being instructed by younger supervisors. He then drifted through various part-time jobs, barely making ends meet. Meanwhile, Madison, having grown tired of Mike, decided to divorce him early on, and threw herself into her work with renewed vigor. Though they were not blessed with children, she paid a visit to a child welfare facility with a friend. It led her to volunteer and engage in support activities for children. Helping as many children as possible find their desired paths in life made her feel her life had meaning. "I'm truly grateful to you, Mr. Carter," You taught me that there's more to life than just marriage to Mike and gave me the opportunity to change my life." Madison said when we met again after a long time. She had stopped her flashy dressing and opted for a simple, elegant style instead. It seems that men with sincere intentions are also drawn to her. Given her diligence and capability, she can undoubtedly carve out a fulfilling life for herself from here on. As for us, Sophia safely gave birth to our second child, a son, thereafter. As a family of 4, we cherish each other and live happily every day. Having experienced poverty in my childhood, I'm determined not to let my children go through the same hardships. Therefore, I'm even more devoted to my work than ever, striving daily to stabilize the company. If I ever seem to be heading in a dangerous direction, I'm sure Sophia, always by my side, will caution me. For the sake of my family and employees, I'm committed to managing Anderson Group with care. The regional development project has progressed smoothly, and now there's a large park in front of the station. As I watch my children play in the park, Sophia and I contemplate the future of our town together. The future of our children represents the future of our country. I want to do everything within our power to pass on a better world to our children. Watching our kids run around energetically, I once again reflect on our hopes for the future.